Okay, hi, I'm Ken from the Ken Rigel Group, and today we are in conversation with a couple of my buddies in the industry that we actually do a lot together. We're part of Game Changers Nation in EXP. This is Jonathan Popowich from Popowich and Company and Trung Bien from the Trung Bien team. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking before we got in front of the camera. We were talking about the NAR ruling south of the border. This is this huge lawsuit that actually was ruled on a few months ago, but a settlement just happened 5 days ago, and it's presenting a seismic shift south of the border in how real estate is done, and it's got a lot of realtors freaking out, talking about it. It just seems to be the topic on everybody's lips right now. So we thought we'd just dive into it a little bit, kind of explain what's happened, and then sort of give our take on it. So first of all, this lawsuit that happened. Well, really what's happened is there's a bunch of people that got together, created a class action lawsuit against some companies in the US against antitrust. It was about the antitrust laws in the States and offering buyer commissions on MLS listings. They're basically saying that was contravening antitrust laws. That was ruled on and agreed with. And so the National Association of Realtors in the US, just to really summarize this quickly, has basically decided they're going to settle with all these plaintiffs to the tune of $418 million over a 4-year period. And they've now made some changes to the rules. The biggest change that's going to affect realtors is they are no longer going to be offering a buyer's agent commission on MLS documentation. And it's that change that really has a lot of realtors freaked out. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about that today and sort of get your take on that. So John, when you hear that, what does that mean to you? Like, how do you feel about that? And how are you gonna, be watching this in case it does come to Canada?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think like the natural inclination is sort of like change. There's going to be some kind of a change into the way that we're doing things. But then when you really start understanding it and unpacking it and thinking the whole thing through, it makes a whole lot of sense. And I can actually understand where this is coming from. Really, it's always been one of those conversations that we just kind of get used to it when we're talking with buyers and sellers. And you explain to a seller, like, hey, look, this is the listing commission. From this commission, we're going to incentivize or offer a commission to the buyer's representative so that they can come in and they can get paid. But then when you're working on the other side of it with the buyer, the way that we conduct our business and the agents on my team is, day one, we do a buyer's presentation and we say, this is what we work for. We will try to collect that from the seller, but in the event that they're offering something less or it's a for sale by owner and they don't want to pay us at all, we're going to look to you to make up that difference. So essentially, it looks like we're just kind of dealing with a plan B scenario. And we're not going to be able to see that advertised commission from the seller if it ends up happening here. So it really isn't going to change a lot in the way that we conduct business. I think for many agents that maybe don't have that conversation with their buyer because they've just become accustomed and trained to knowing that the commission will be there, whatever it is, those are probably the teams and the businesses that are going to struggle.
For sure. Trung, what's your thought on this?
I think with this NAR change, it's one thing that we see in this industry is that change is inevitable. There's always rule changes, so this is just one of them. I think that it's always important to have transparency in this industry, and this is one that is just a more heavier, more pronounced change that most realtors are having that should be expected to come. The commission structure is kind of like an old guard policy that hasn't changed for 30 plus years, and now it looks like there's going to be some pretty sweeping change in the States that may or may not come to Canada. So it's good to kind of see what is happening in the States first, so then we can properly plan for it. And for us as a team, I think we should just accept it for what it is, be really transparent with the clients that we work with as buyers that we will look to kind of negotiate the commissions with the seller. But if not, then this is what our fee is. And then really kind of emphasize the value proposition that we're adding, because I truly believe that in NAR's perspective or in the plaintiff's perspective, that the buyer's agent doesn't offer a lot of value because a lot of information is available online, where I think that without that realtor's insight, with them having the ability to analyze that data and also seeing the intangibles about a home, that with or without that commission, I think people will still value the buyer's realtor. And I think that they will appreciate the commissions that are paid, especially when the buyer's realtor is working so hard, being always available to show hosts last minute and to provide that quick counsel on the spot to write an offer quickly.
For sure, for sure. And I think the lucky thing for us up here is that we get a front row seat to watch this, because these sweeping changes happen on July 1st. Now, the lawsuits are not north of the border. They've been launched north of the border, but there's been no ruling. There's class action lawsuits up here in Canada now, but there's been no ruling on if this is going to come to Canada or not. Now, we can speculate that if it did happen in the U.S., we like to follow what the U.S. does. There's a fairly high likelihood that we're going to see changes similar to this in Canada as well. And it's always fun to armchair quarterback and to speculate on this stuff too. I'm kind of with you guys. I actually think it's really good. I think it's a good change for the industry because it creates more transparency around commissions. I think that buyers agents should have to negotiate their commissions. If you're a selling agent, you're already going in there and you're negotiating the commission with the seller, but you never really have to negotiate the commission with the buyer. The buyer just expects they're going to get paid a certain amount. There's no set commission, like everything's negotiable, but there's kind of an accepted practice that you're going to get paid a certain amount if you're a buyer's agent in this industry. And lots of buyer's agents get upset if they aren't going to be paid that. And it's like anything, there's really good buyer's agents and there's not so good buyer's agents. I mean, there's 7,500 realtors in our city, and really how do you tell the difference between the two? So it's going to allow buyer's agents to actually have to prove their worth and have to be better and just beat the market. I like it. I actually think it's going to be really good for the industry. I know that that's not a popular take, but I actually would really like to see that come here, and buyer's agents would really have to know their value and prove it to a consumer.
Yeah, I think like anything, there's always a part of the thing I love about this industry is it's a very, let's be honest, it's a very low barrier to entry, right? Like anybody can become a realtor. And with that, I think it's something that it opens it up. Like, take myself as an example. I don't have any university education. I just have high school education. Love business, and here we are. We've carved out a pretty good business. And so I think that, like anything, there's going to be people that will take this, they'll use it as an opportunity to really prove their worth and communicate that value. And then there's going to be others that are going to just hurdle and not survive. Sure. So I think I agree with you, Ken. It's going to separate the people that are doing really good quality business and those that maybe aren't. It's going to get rid of a lot of the complacency in the industry. And it's just going to be interesting to sort of watch how everything kind of evolves. One of the other things that I think is going to be interesting is, is the tendency going to be for listing agents to just all of a sudden reduce their fee or kind of adjust their fee to what would be kind of typical for their market, just acting in the listing capacity, or maybe that's going to change as well. Maybe we're going to see that number creep up a little bit. So I'm kind of curious to see how this whole thing is gonna pan out.
Yeah, there's a million different ways that this could go. And Trung and I were talking about this before we got on camera too, is that, okay, so part of the lawsuit was, real estate commissions have artificially increased home selling values. Do you honestly think that sellers are going to reduce their price if they have to pay less commission? Do you think that's going to happen? How is that going to affect market? House prices aren't coming down because you're paying less commission. Sellers are going to take more money. Like, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, like we know CREA, like just in the Canadian Real Estate Association, like the MLS holds a 98.5% market share of all resale properties bought and sold. So 98.5% of the time, the commission is built into that fee. So when an appraiser is going out and they're appraising a home based on market value, that commission is sort of built in there. So you're right. Like, it's the same thing for home sellers. They're not all of a sudden going to start discounting their home by 1 or 2% or 3% or whatever it is. So yeah.
I think it's going to lead to more money in the seller's pocket, and then the buyers are going to potentially be paying more, because not only are they going to pay what the market commands, but they're also going to be paying the buyer's realtor. So it could have kind of the opposite effect, where the realtor is still going to get paid what they feel like they're entitled to. The sellers are going to make more money, and then it's just going to be the cost of the house is going to get higher, because there's now going to be higher transaction costs with the purchase. So it could have kind of a negative side effect to it, and we won't know, but we will have a front. We'll see to it.
Yeah, and there's going to be there's a million different ways that this could go, right? Like you think about it, there's countries that don't have buyer's agent, like over in Europe, they have estate agents, and you go to that guy's office, and they don't have an MLS system like we do, and you go in and you look at the houses, and then he'll give you the keys or he'll show you the house, and then you deal with that estate agent. There are no buyer's agents. I mean, that could be a byproduct of this. I highly doubt that's going to happen. Or we could be looking at, okay, now buyer's agents have to negotiate with the seller and write their commissions in, which we are already doing. Like if we go up against somebody that isn't offering a commission, like a for sale by owner, or, there's discount brokerages that don't offer a fee that we think is reasonable for the job that we're doing, we'll always negotiate our commissions in that instance. So it's not like this is super different from that. We're already doing that. Or the consumer may just get trained into, if you're going to hire a buyer's agent, it's now on the buyer. Now, I just don't know how that's going to work, because part of the reason why buyer's agent commissions haven't been paid by buyers in the past is that you can't over mortgage a house to pay a realtor. And that's why they were baked into the sale price, so that it didn't affect the mortgage from the buyer. I just don't know how that's going to work if a buyer's purchasing costs have now just gone up that much more in order to buy a house when the house price hasn't come down to reflect it. It's just going to add to the overall cost of the transaction, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
I agree. I agree with what both of you guys said there. I think it's just going to, I understand the intent and where this whole thing is coming from, but at the end of the day, the money is still going to be there one way or another. It's still going to get paid one way or another. And I think that you're right. Just the cost of the transaction is going to increase. It's like anything else. There's always been that conversation about like how realtors are going to become obsolete. You've got Redfin, or you've got all these for sale by owner platforms that end up coming and going and everything. It's no different than something like changing the oil, right? Like you can change your oil in your car. Anybody can do that. But you still see Mr. Lube on every single corner. And there's a lot of people that they would rather sit in their car and crank out a couple of emails and texts and have somebody change the oil for them, instead of going and buying the oil and the filter and going through that whole process themselves. My wife and I were looking for a recreational property out in BC, and like I can negotiate, I can find properties, I know what I'm looking for, but there is tremendous value in having a solid buyer's agent that knows the market, knows what's going on, they're informed in their product, and I have no problem paying a couple of points to have that value in the transaction. So
yeah. And it's about the value too, right? Like I really, that's why I like this so much. I think it's just that buyer's agents are now going to have to prove their value. And hopefully too, what this does is it goes a long way to changing public perception about our industry. Cause let's face it, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of stereotypes about realtors and, the money they make and all that kind of stuff, which is not actually true. If you dig into our businesses, we spend a lot of money. We don't make nearly as much money as you think, because we're running businesses. It's not like we get to keep all that money, but hopefully this goes a long way into changing that stereotype about that we don't work for our money, because buyer's agents are actually going to have to prove their worth and their value to the marketplace. And the ones that can't do that are just going to go by the wayside.
Totally.
I think the subpar realtor, they may discount their commissions to earn the buyer's trust, but I think the buyer may not even want to use them, and then will still pay what a good buyer's realtor wants. So will it get any cheaper? I don't think it would. Like, I know for my business, if I had to negotiate with the buyer on what my commission would be, I'd still be asking for the same, if not just marginally more, because I do believe in the services that I offer. And I think I could possibly have a strong value proposition and believe that they will want that service. Because I think with the swing in negotiation,
that's it right there. It's strong value proposition and knowing what your value is. It's changing the conversations that we're going to have with people, right? Like you just absolutely nailed it.
The swings in negotiation start minimum 5,000 to 10,000. So do you want a good realtor in there to kind of help you save that money, right? Or do you want that non-effective realtor to just kind of accept that you're going to have to pay $10,000 more? Or would you want to work with someone that can fight for that 10,000?
Yeah. I think the business model just of, what I'm kind of thinking about is like right now, some teams have showing agents. I know it's a little bit more popular in the United States, but I think that's probably something where you're going to see a lot of the realtors that maybe aren't as high value to their clients, they're going to probably end up in those types of positions where it maybe end up being more of a showing agent type role. And then the higher value realtors will probably be brought in more on negotiations and those types of things potentially. So I think there could be some big business model changes as well with this coming down the pipe, but we'll see.
Yeah. And like everything in this business, it's always changing. There's always something new coming down the pipe. I embrace the change. I love it. I actually was talking about this in our team meeting yesterday, and there was a few people looking at me around the table. They were scared. They're like, oh, we just got in the industry and now this is happening. It's like, it doesn't matter. You just got to beat it. Like any market, you just beat the market. If it's a buyer's market, you got to beat it. If it's a seller's market, you just got to beat the market. That's all you have to do. You just have to adjust and beat this as well. And hopefully it's going to weed out a lot of the bottom feeders, because that's what this business is good at. This business is phenomenal at eating its young. When the success rate of realtors is so low in a 3-year period, what is it, like 75% of realtors don't make it after 3 years or something like that? So this is just another, to me, this is just another filter that the industry is going to put in place that's just going to let the strong survive.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think there's going to be less applicants for new realtors, less realtors renewing their license. And I also feel that the prices of homes are not going to go down as a result of it. That's my guess. So we'll see.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you hopping on with me today. And again, I'm excited that we get a front row seat for this thing so we can be prepared if it does come to Canada.
Absolutely. Right on. Thanks for taking the time, guys.
I'll get the popcorn.
Yeah.